Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Flow Show, Tuesday, 29th of October, nearly the end of the month, nearly Halloween. Let's hope it's not a horror show for the rest of the week. Morning, Kay. How you doing, mate?
Good morning, Ryan. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm doing all right, mate. Doing all right. Just trying to get some of our audience online because our clocks change have messed up the link on our webpage till us, which is still a bit of an hour early. Yeah, but everything okay, mate? Yeah, getting closer and closer to the big events. So
Yeah,
gearing up towards it. Although I will be off over the election, so that's going to be a bit of a funky one.
yeah, that's definitely. And I'm not looking forward to it in the slightest. Anyway, it'll be what it'll be, and we'll trade through it nevertheless. Right, let's get through the headlines and whatnot. There's been another story that China are going to consider approving a fresh fiscal package, which could be worth over 10 trillion yuan. I've read through the details of this. It was a headline that hit, and we saw Aussie perk up a little bit and whatnot. But the details are, it's them launching something they've previously spoken about. This was their efforts. They're going to, sell government bonds, local bonds, to address local government debt problems, to acquire land, buy land and properties that aren't selling and that sort of stuff. So although it's sort of been pumped as a new potential measure, it's the details reading like it's just they're going to be launching the measure that they've announced previously. So I'm not sure it's going to have the effect that it did earlier. As I say, caused a little bit of a pop in some risk markets, commodities and whatnot, and the Aussie, but it's gone backwards since then. As I say, it doesn't look like new news per se. Over in Japan, the mess continues. The Komeito leader Keiichi is going to step down. The leader of that party also lost a ton of seats and lost a coalition with a Shiba, so heads are already rolling over there. PM Ishiba was apparently looking to seek a partial coalition with the DPP party, but the head of that, Tamaki, started off saying that he hadn't heard from the LDP about a partial coalition, and then said he won't join an LDP or Komeito ruling coalition. Also thought it apt to comment on the BOJ, saying they shouldn't rapidly change policy at the moment. So that's an indication that all of them have got the BOJ on their minds as well. So that could feature in all this horse trading that's going to be going on over the days ahead. There was a bit of good news for the economy in the meanwhile. We've got some jobs data out from Japan. Is it even on here? Yes, there we go. So the unemployment rate dropped to 2.4% from 2.5%, was expected to come in unchanged. So that's showing a more tightening of the labour market there, which is obviously good news on the wages front, although the jobs to applications ratio ticked up a point to 1.24, but still unemployment rate coming down should support wage growth, because the less people there are for jobs, the higher they might have to pay to get the right people in. But there's also a big demographic issue in Japan as well. Coming over to the UK and a bit of Bank of England data, mortgage approvals showing another healthy 65.65k, beating expectations like it did last month, and last month also got revised higher, although total mortgage lending was down a bit, so that potentially smacks of remortgaging rather than fresh mortgaging. Bank of England consumer credit dropped to 1.23 billion from they usually round it up 1.4 billion. As usual, I'll keep an eye on the old credit card spending, the old plastic, just to see if there's anything coming from that we should worry about. Nothing of note from that. Credit card borrowing fell to 400 million from 500 million, and all the rest of the balance of that, which is car loans, personal loans, and whatever, that also dropped from 900 million to 800 million. So no problems there still. Over in Germany, the big union IG Metall has called for warning strikes from today. This has been something that's been bubbling over there, arguing about pay rises and the like. So these are warning strikes, but they could pick up into bigger strikes through November and December, including, I believe, a total shutdown from the 23rd of December. I think that was reported previously. So still kicking off in Germany. ECB bods, they're about the only ones talking at the moment, seeing as all the Fed heads are on lockdown. Holtzman was out with an interesting comment saying that undershooting the 2% inflation target is beneficial to reinforce credibility. He was talking that it doesn't really matter if inflation undershoots temporarily, as long as it then goes back to target. He's expecting, much like a lot of other ECB members, inflation to pick up over the months ahead and then settle back down again. So he says if that happens, we see an undershoot and then it goes back up and then comes back down and settles. That won't be a credibility issue for the ECB. The question will be if he's right or if inflation undershoots and doesn't bounce from that point. ECB's not says central bank should keep an open mind on the next rate cut. De Guindos decided to speak. He said the price outlook is surrounded by substantial risks. We don't have good news with respect to growth, but we do have good news with respect to inflation, and it will keep all options open at forthcoming meetings. Anything from that lot you picking out, Kay? Anything from Japan that's changing the?
Well, as you already said, the DPP decided not to go in bed with either side, actually, because they also said that they wouldn't be talking to the CDP if worse goes to worse. So they pulled out of everything. No, not really. I think, yeah, for as long as there's a bit of political mess, it's going to well, it seems to weigh a bit on the yen, but not too much on the equity market, because we saw a pretty decent jump back on the Nikkei, which is actually continuing. We are not too far from the recent highs, around 39 to we're at 39,100, I think, right now. So there's still the message of the market is a bit twofold, I reckon. Still thinking that they will get their act together and that the Japanese companies will continue to do well despite the uncertainty surrounding the government. I did see though that if Ishida wouldn't be able to form a government within 30 days or so, that there will be some kind of a runoff between the two candidates who had the most votes. And I guess that is the two candidates of the LDP party then, because they still had the most votes. And then the one who received the most votes will become the next prime minister. That should be it for that round, if there's no bigger mess. So
does that include Ishiba, or do you mean the other?
yeah, I think he was one of the two. Yeah,
because it was him and the what was seen as the dove over the BOJ, Takeishi, was it the lady?
Yeah. That one. So I guess if we go to that point, that may have another bit of an effect that round. But well, if we would be in their shoes, we would. But I've got the impression that they are going to push very hard to have a government before the U.S. elections, just to be ready to react to anything which would need any sizable reaction from the US. So expect end of this week, early next week, the negotiations to really ramp up, and them trying to find a government. That's how I view things. If it wouldn't be, then it's could be getting a little bit more messy.
Yeah, and what did you think of that comment from the DPP on the BOJ?
Well, I mean,
You
if
know,
you decide not to go in ship with the leading coalition, or if the opposition would get it, what's your right of speech?
yeah, I mean, just commenting on it at all. You know, you don't often get opposition parties. You
Yeah,
know,
because
giving,
they like to grill the leading parties and the Bank of Japan governor when they go to the diet to present changes, or to for their regular Q&A. They always like to have their own opinion and grill them on that. So it's a bit logic that they all have an opinion, but again, I don't think it's the opinion is worth much if you decide yourself not to go into any government.
yeah, I guess the interesting thing is that they have that questioning, but we only tend to see the response from the BOJ. We don't see the question in the first place. So, you know, we might get a bit more insight in those questions from these opposition parties or different parties, rather than what the response, just the response from the BOJ. But we know the market's going to be looking at the BOJ angle a lot. So we'll just have to see what pops up from these guys over the next few days.
Mm.
Moving over to Canada, Macklем's been out again and going on about the neutral rate, saying we will have to discover what that rate is over time. So another one who doesn't know where the rate is going to be just yet. And these neutral rates are going to be the big, I'll say, big information or big ticket item going into next year, where these banks see rates stopping and whether they can, in fact, stop them there. A couple of bond auctions out yesterday. We had some month auctions. We also had some yearly auctions, 2 and 5s. I had a brief look at those. 2K2s looked a bit on the wonky side. 5s was okay though. Any pickings from that?
Sorry, Ryan, which one?
2s and 5s. The 2s looked a bit.
Yeah, they weren't great, but we are in this. What else can be expected somewhere? Because if you look at yields creeping up, and just ahead of the elections, the market is not going to give any free gifts in these days. So we do have another big leg today. As Mark says, I wouldn't say the 5s were okay. They were not. They both had tails. So, but what else to expect is what I would say, especially people taking into account the risk factor of Trump, and especially Trump, I would say. And if yields continue to go higher, why would you give it for free now to the Treasury?
Yeah, no, very much so. And yeah, I probably should have been a bit. I was being a bit lazy with my description, Mark. I was looking at the take up. Foreign take up looked to be pretty crappy in the 2s and a bit better in the 5s, unless I read it wrong, which is always possible that time of the morning. But anyway, moving on. Right, we've got all this stuff still going on, Middle East and all that crap. So apparently, there was a headline thrown up yesterday that Hamas was approving of an Egyptian offer, and that the US has been pressuring all sides to come to an agreement before the election. Obviously, talking their own book on that, Mark. So what this proposal from Egypt was a short truce in Gaza with a small hostage prisoner exchange. And then that proposal would see talks resuming within 10 days of that 2-day truce to forge a bigger deal or better agreement. Hamas sources apparently were up for that proposal. At the outset, Israeli PM Netanyahu sounded like he wasn't. He said, once Hamas no longer controls Gaza and Hezbollah is pushed back from the border, he's going to aspire to continue the process of the Abraham Accords with more Arab countries. But then he added that mediators will continue talks in the coming days with Hamas to see if it's possible to advance a deal. But meanwhile, the cabinet has decided to conduct another response against Iran, and they're going to do that soon. That's in retaliation to the drone attack on Netanyahu's home or his residence. So we're getting yet another retaliation for the retaliation and all that stuff going on. So we may be heading to some sort of truce, which will obviously see oil probably heading a bit lower. Risk trades repricing for that, but it definitely doesn't seem the end of it nonetheless. I think Netanyahu's position is still that obviously to want all his hostages returned, and not just a few, but maybe they have to start somewhere. And over in Ukraine and the Russia war going on there, we've obviously know that there's been rumours, well, probably more fact than rumours, that North Korean soldiers are now being deployed on front lines in Russia and Ukraine. The Pentagon deemed the need to issue a warning saying that no new limits on Ukraine's use of American weapons against North Korean forces if they become co-belligerents in Russia's war. So that might be a bit of a bigger step up, because the West, US, has been pretty reluctant to let Ukraine use a lot of their weapons, particularly inside Russia. But this step up from North Korean forces being dragged into this may mean that, as it says, no new limits are placed on the use of those weapons, which would mean another escalation in that war. So things are not calming down there yet, always bubbling on under the surface. Okay, any other headlines you got?
No, it's been on the real headline front. It's been relatively quiet. The thing which perhaps is not a good sign for Germany yet is that Volkswagen seems to make hard the thoughts that they had earlier in the year of starting to close factories. So they are now thinking of closing 3 factories in Germany, and still, I think for the German manufacturing sector, being one of the engines of Europe, it's still not good news. But for the rest, I think we've spoken about everything.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And yeah, definitely still not looking good for VW over in Germany. Right, let's have a look at what's been going on in markets. There's been a few moves going on, and I don't know if I even need to bother looking at euro dollar at the moment. It's pretty much doing nothing, sitting pretty tightly. Couldn't even get up to test 108.30, and we're still mooching around the figure down here. So, 25, 30 pip range yesterday, and not looking much better today. So I won't waste our time on that one. Cable has had a couple of little mooches up at 130 now. It's still finding it a tough nut after the breakdown. We had a look yesterday. We may go on to have a look today. Again, still fairly quiet for this one, but while it's holding below that 130 level, it keeps the bearish pressure on, although we are stepping up the lows now. So that might be a little bit of a change, temporary or otherwise. But with all these big data events coming up, you can't really pick one side or the other for now. Dollar CAD's had a little move off the highs, struggling up at that 139s. They had a little couple of pokes above, but it hasn't managed to stay above. And now this morning we're finding it resistance at that 139 figure again. So I think if it does this for a few more times, then it's going to set up potential for a decent move through if it eventually breaks. So I might have a little look at this one for a break trade, but again, with all this data coming up, could just be a case of wait and see. I think I'm probably more inclined to buy a dip rather than try and get in around the top here. I certainly wouldn't want to be long up here going into something like the NFP on Friday or any of the other data coming up. And we do have US consumer confidence and jolts today, I believe, if I'm right. Let me double check. house price data, jolts, and consumer confidence. So already we're getting a big bit of data today. So keep an eye on that for your dollar pairs. Aussie is looking like it's in a bit of trouble at the moment. It's had a bit of a break of the 61.8 fib of the August rally. We're just now mooching around that level. It's been a bit of a level also around here, this 65.75 level. So this is a bit of a decision point, I think, for the Aussie dollar. We have broken down below it, but we're back around it at the moment. So I think if we close today below this level, then there's every chance that we're going to be seeing further downside for this one. It's not letting up at all. And that's showing against the Kiwi too. Finally got a bit of a breakdown. We've been sitting really for a while in this 110, 40, 50 area. And it hasn't really budged, but it looks like it might be budging now. So let's see if that continues. We're below this 110, 18, 20 area. If it starts to hold that, then maybe we see a bit more coming out of the Aussie dollar on that front. Quick look at gold, then I will pass it over to the Cayman. Where are we? Where are we? Because we've had another look up to the top side and the prior highs today, and it's held. So this level is now pretty much confirming. At the moment, we're sort of limited back to this 49 area, which has been a bit on and off, a couple of bucks either side or whatever, but it's trying to stay above it. If it does that, then we may be going on to fresh highs. And this 40 level, which I wasn't sure about whether to pull it or not, as you can see, for the remainder of yesterday afternoon, it was holding it. So that's constructive, at least for that move to the highs. Now we need to see what happens here. We're going to break the highs, or we're going to go back below that 40 area. If we go below that 40s, we're probably going to have a look down at some of these low areas, down towards the low 27s. So on a bit of a knife edge here, what it wants to do, it's looking constructive, I say, for a bit of a break. But, time will tell. If we go a bit longer without doing so, then that increases the chances of a bit of a pullback on that one.
Time zones.
Yeah, go on, mate.
To me, time zones, it seems, on gold. It's still Asia, the main driver of it. We tend to come in the mornings and find gold and silver a bit higher than where they were on the close or the day before. Europe shows very little interest, but in the Americas, perhaps it's also been traded a bit more. But it does look that the deep buyers are still there in gold, right? I still think it's partially geopolitics, obviously, but also still people preparing the Trump trade if there is. So there's going to be big risk either side on gold metals in general next week.
Yeah, definitely could be a case of tightening up your stops going into next week, I think.
Oh yeah.
I was keeping an eye on copper as well because it's seen a bit of a rally today, and that's when you see that you'd expect maybe something like the Aussie dollar to be a bit supported, and it hasn't been, although it has come off the lows. But copper's had a little bit of a pick up there. I'm not sure what's the driver behind this. Maybe that China stimulus news, which if it is a bit of a rinse and repeat, then that might be a bit of a false move. But we get all the final manufacturing numbers this week and the ISM and the like, so that's something to watch for in commodities. US oil took a little bit, obviously, bit of a battering after that Israel-Iran stuff wasn't as bad as feared, and so we're back to playing the fundamentals on this one. Still looking weak. Pretty strong level down here. If we break this area down here, then we're potentially heading much lower, maybe down towards the $60 mark. I haven't heard whether Biden's playing with his trading platform so far, looking to fill up the SPR. Not that they go directly into the market, of course, they go to tender, but while prices are down here, it may be something they look at as well. But yeah, we're on a big level at the moment. Kay, I'm going to bang it over to you, mate.
So first of all, let's have a quick look at what's happening in dollar yen. But again, I want to keep it with a bit of the wider view. I've been trading a little. I've been trading it a little bit on the long side again, just like really faster scalps, because I do think that oh, well, first of all, we haven't mentioned it yet, but we are trading value date end of month today, so we don't know exactly whether they're going to be very active or whether the US corporates will be in the market today, because we know that regularly they do a bit of shopping on the value date end of month. So don't be surprised. I'm not saying it'll happen, but just don't be surprised. In general, the dollar has a little bit of a bit going into the London fixing this afternoon. So yeah, I think since since the election, been a bit up and down on the dollar yen, but we are holding those that trend line, those moving averages. We are holding, as I showed already, we are holding above the weekly cloud, which also comes in around 152. Okay, so for as long as that level holds there, 151 and a half, 152, it does seem that speculators or others, perhaps even the correlation between a higher Nikkei and a weaker yen is back as well. So, but we are trying to go a little higher. Whether it's really decisive, I wouldn't say so. We are turning around this 61.8 again. Which has been traded in the past. But I do think we're just like on a slight move higher, and but purely it's intraday what I'm doing here. Okay, it's not something where I'm building a position. We do have all the job data to come out for the rest of the week. We do have a bit of end of month as well. You can read about that in our chat room if you are with us. There is a lot to happen next week, so everything I'm doing right now is really rather short term, because anyway, into the US elections, barring perhaps my base really small silver that I've got left over, I'm not going to hold anything at all, because any good position can be taken out on some outsized moves, whatever the election result is. First wave, second waves can take out any position next week. So I'm going to be um, traveling very, very light. So, but that is still what I'm looking at for dollar yen. I do think we could make it back up into the 54s, perhaps closer to perhaps these highs here around 155. That is a possibility. Yeah, without interventions, expecting the Bank of Japan to keep their hands still, it may be that we kind of gravitate a little bit higher in there. Two things. I'm going to look at a bit of different stuff today. So first of all, Euro Kiwi. We're seeing a bit of a resistance line here coming in just above 181. Also, we will be having a bit of a few levels here, 181.70 up to 182. Now, Kiwi has been the weak brother of even in versus Aussie, but it's now starting to gain traction again. Let's say, especially versus the Aussie, versus the dollar, we are not moving yet. But after that interview and those couple of interviews, I've got the impression, I'm not saying the market is running short Kiwi, but I've got the impression that we don't see it also yet in the CNH, but would there be something there that finally people are going to buy perhaps into China a little bit more? It may be having to wait until the US elections, of course, because of tariffs, tariff risk and stuff. But anyway, in the shorter term, I'm giving this one a little try here, short against this trend line, and then perhaps add a little bit here. But if it goes through the 61.8, I'll be gone and leave it for what it is. This is Euro Kiwi. I'm not doing Kiwi dollar because today, as I said, I'm I'm not really feeling the Kiwi dollar, but I think euro is perhaps a better one here. So this is one that I'm keeping an eye on today. You are looking at the Aussie Kiwi. I think Aussie Kiwi is starting to be heavier again. Some in our room are a bit short from higher up here or in the 110.40s as well. We are starting to break back below the 110 zone, 110.15 here. It's looking a little bit heavier now. It's looking a little bit heavier. Look at those two prior lows that we've seen. It was looking heavy there too, but then we saw the bounce. So I'd say watch out for 109.75 as well. All right. If we confirm through 109.75, then Aussie Kiwi can trade lower, Brian. All right. And I think some whoops. And as I said, some people in our room are interested in seeing this kind of move as well. So
Hello, hello.
yeah.
That one of them's me.
Yeah, exactly. You, a couple of others are short in this, and so hopefully this is now picking up steam in your guys' direction. But yeah, interesting that we are back below this 110 figure 15 level, I would say. Sorry. And then I need to show it back again. This dollar Norway. We are starting to show signs of running out of puff. Okay. We are on interesting levels in oil. Not sure about gas, but and also with what I said last week about the Norges Bank, perhaps in future starting to change their plans regarding the Norwegian krona. It does look that above 11, people are starting to find this enough. Okay, so for the time being, we are really respecting that any moves above 11 seem to find sellers, and I would say it could be very interesting, because if we really find tops in dollar Norway, we could be to our way back to 10.50 at least. All right. So this is one that I'm keeping a close eye on as well. What else? What else? What else? What else? I haven't really got too much else. Ryan already showed gold. Yeah, silver already finding support the other day around here, and it's really still very big as well. I didn't have any occasion or any opportunity to buy it here in the mid 33s, and really, Brian, for now, that's about it, mate. For me, I'm gonna give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. I'll just have a quick look. Grab the screen. Give me 1 second. Just going to have a quick look at yields, because you know, if you're following the dollar,
Yeah, I forgot.
you should be following yields.
I forgot to show it. I forgot to show the 10 years, because we are closing in on really important levels there.
Yeah, it's looking hot again. Yields, you know, whether you look at the short end or the longer end, we're still trying to knock above this 430 area. I think if that happens, then you know, there's still. I mean, I know people are talking about 5%, but I think that's way out of line. But then I thought we might be stopping at 4%, so don't listen to me. But I think if we get up to, you know, above 440, 4.5%, I think that really is getting into overblown territory. But who knows what the market wants to do with this election? So you can't fight this too much at the moment, and dollar's going to be following that as well. Dollar yen too, although it's got its own problems to deal with domestically in the yen side anyway. But yeah, if you haven't got them, keep yields on a chart somewhere close through the data, particularly later on, and all US data, as that's going to give you some indications and clues as to what's going on. Oh, nice early one today, just as the Yanks are turning up. But I think we'll call that a day for today. Maybe a bit of a quiet one till we get that data. So get prepped, do your chart work, do your homework, get some questions ready for tomorrow to give us, to keep us talking. And otherwise, thank you very much, Kay, as usual, and have a good day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.